Welcome to After the Buzzers Sports Podcast, where we talk real sports and real issues. Tonight we have a special edition of After the Buzzers for you. It's a roundtable, so let's go.
Raquel M.R. Thomas. Listen, guys, you know we typically talk about sports and give our opinion about things going on, but today we wanted to switch it up a little bit. We wanted to get some people involved that are really inside of sports right now, who are on the front lines, who are dealing with our youngsters from a business perspective, also coaching perspective. So we wanted to really bring in some professionals to help us kind of gauge this conversation with the things that we have going on today, from COVID-19 to likeness and image, to the way college football is changing and college basketball. We really wanted to come in and bring some guys in that could really guide us in this conversation. So that's what we have tonight. So I'm going to introduce you guys to our panel to give you an idea who we got on the show, and then we're going to just dive right into this. So we got Dr. David Roberts, of course, always our medical professional. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Roberts. We got Teddy Keaton. You know, he's always a regular on the show, but head men's football coach at Allen University. We've also got Walter Pitts, my former teammate at University of Alabama, but more importantly, he done made his way in the coaching field. He's an assistant women's basketball coach at University of Virginia. We got BJ Mackey, who's going to join us. He's a assistant men's basketball coach at Wake Forest University, handling some business, so he'll jump on in just a bit. We got Coach Sean Walker, Elizabeth City State. He's been in the business for a long time. He's won on many levels. I coached against him when I was playing, so I know what kind of stuff he brings to the table. We got Vincent Lyons. We got Elliot Lyons. Of course, they are engineering executives. And just a little caveat, a little note on these two guys. They were both selected twice as Black Enterprise 100 Most Powerful Executives in Corporate America. So they're going to bring a different perspective to what we're trying to do today. We've also got LT Walker, former University of Louisville football player, played for Coach Bobby Petrino. You know, some of us may feel good or bad about that, but we'll see how LT feel about it. He's going to bring in a player perspective for us. So let's jump into this, guys. I know Raquel wants to kind of start us off with some questions, but we're going to jump in. We're going to have a forum. We're going to be open. We're going to talk about this stuff, and we're going to get a nice little flow going. So Raquel, lead us off.
And Sean Gortman just jumped on. She's a former WNBA player, played for the Minnesota Lynx, Washington Mystics, Seattle Storm, and also played a few years overseas. She's a hometown girl. So Sean, I see you, and just jump in when you get ready. Turn your camera on. We want to see your face. But yeah, I'll get it started. It's so cool to see all these amazing faces, but especially Vincent's face. So let's go. Expert opinion.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you.
Expert opinions vary so much, and we know that when it comes to COVID and how it's affecting athletes around the country, for that matter. Heart and health issues has been a big subject matter for us. We've talked about COVID now for probably the last 8 weeks, but we want to talk a little bit about the community and athletic leaders. What does it take from a different viewpoint in COVID? Like, for me, I've been pretty solid as to what I think. I don't think there should be a football season. I certainly don't think there should be a high school or a college football season, but one of my counterparts, he heavily disagrees with me. So we want to get you guys' thoughts on all the issues that are going on with COVID, how it's affecting athletes, from the diseases, heart issues, so on and so forth. Dr. Roberts, I'm going to let you start because I think you're going to give the most educated answer from a science perspective and not what you feel.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Raquel. And again, thank you, everybody. It's great to be a friend of After the Buzzers. And I would like to say good evening to this very esteemed panel. A lot of professionals, a lot of champions, a lot of successful people here. So I'm humbled to be with you guys. Yeah, Raquel, to your point, that's a great question. And we are still living under the threat of probably one of the most dangerous infectious diseases that we have ever faced, at least in the last 100 years, for sure. Particularly in relationship to the athlete and athletics, the aggressive and the ease with which COVID is passed and transmitted presents a serious threat, and it presents a serious danger, certainly to the general public, but to our athletic population as well. As we all know, in athletics of almost any sort, you're in close contact, you're in close quarters, and there's a lot of physicality to that, and that ups the danger of transmission. So we have to be very careful when we allow athletes to get back into both a training and a playing situation, because by the very nature of what they have to do to succeed, it's a high transmission risk, and it can be dangerous. COVID-19, along with influenza, streptococcal infections such as strep throat, present a unique danger to the athlete, because the athlete is so active at high levels, demanding an extreme metabolic state, both in training and in playing. When you have an infectious disease in your body, whether it be COVID or any other sort, the more you become metabolically active, a higher heart rate, more respiration, more demands placed on the body, you allow that infectious agent to pass through your blood and your organs at a faster rate. Therefore, you run the risk of organ damage and potentially increasing the strength and the damage of the infection. And for our young college and even professional athletes, that risk is just as present. So we are concerned about athletes contracting COVID. We are concerned about athletes that might contract COVID or be in a situation where discretion could be compromised, especially for the college and the high school athletes. They don't want to give the appearance of not going hard. If 3 of their buddies go to the gym and they're not feeling well, nobody wants to punk out and not go train on that day. And that puts people in a dangerous situation to not only transmit, but to amplify the damage of the virus within their own organs. We know now that COVID-19 does particularly show its flair and its affinity for damaging heart tissue, in addition to kidney, brain, and liver that we're seeing now, and respiratory tissues as well. So for whatever reason, the genetic makeup of the COVID virus makes it very targeted to attack the heart tissues, causing long-term damage. And especially for our younger athletes, I hate to see them put in a situation where they contract a viral illness and that illness causes lasting scarring, loss of function to their heart, leading them to change of quality of life functions, the inability to play or perform, and ending up with some serious life complications.
So Coach Pitts, you guys have started practice. And as the coach there at the University of Virginia, how are you guys approaching it from dealing with you guys as athletes there at University of Virginia, as far as them being on the court playing? And so tell us what you guys' approach is, and then I want Coach Walker to jump in.
Unmute yourself, Walt.
Unmute yourself.
All right. Sorry about
that.
Everyone's getting tested every 2 weeks here. And they have to wear a mask once you enter the building. For practice-wise, you have to wear your mask while you're practicing. So it's very uncomfortable. Speaking on what Doc said, I can see where the virus can be very dangerous, where your level goes up, for just, practicing hard, your heart rate and everything going up and get inside the bloodstream. It's uncomfortable, but we're doing it right now. I just don't think how long it's going to last, to be honest.
Coach Walker?
Yeah, right now at Elizabeth City, we pretty much have a stalemate on athletics altogether. So my players the majority of my players have opted to go to school virtually. We are still trying to determine a resocialization and a reacclimation plan as it relates to even getting back to a modified schedule. So at this point on my end, obviously we're a winter sport in basketball, but on my end, even for football, there are no activities on our campus at this point. So we are looking forward to trying to get a lift on gyms being open and maybe some one-on-one or some sense of modified activity here in the next after Labor Day, but we don't know what that looks like. And We don't even know what the protocols will actually be once we're able to get back into the gym outside of, having small groups and not having more than 10 to include coaches.
So Coach Pitts and Walker, I want you both to answer this. I want to know what your personal thought is. How do you feel personally about your students playing during the season? Are you for them playing, or are you not, based on what's going on with COVID?
Coach Pitts, you go first, and I'll bring up the rear.
Okay. My personal opinion is I think we should cancel all sports. Until we can get a control of this virus and see what's going on, until we can get some type of handle, some type of vaccine in place that's not something rushed. Just listen to what Doc said. It's got me more scared right now. It's a scary thing. So my personal opinion, I think we should shut this thing down until we can get some type of control, some type of vaccine in place. And it's gonna take not only the university, but then you got all these upper people that got to come in hand too. The NCAA, a lot of people got to come together, and I think you got too many people want to do one thing, the other want to do another, and it's never going to work. It's gonna be a problem for sure.
Coach Walker.
Yeah, I'll speak for him, and I wanted Coach Pitts to go first because I speak on it from multiple standpoints. From a parent standpoint, I have a son who's a sophomore. That's a college basketball player who did 4 weeks in for summer school. He was at George Washington last year, and he's going to be at Tallahassee Community College this year. And that did 4 weeks of summer school. Obviously, as a parent, I was very concerned. I put him on the airplane to go back to school on Sunday night. Obviously, I'm very concerned. So to just pay attention to, I think as a parent, I am more so, even more so in tune to what's going on for my son and my boy, and I'm able to correlate that and infiltrate that over into my thoughts about my team. So what I will say is that I have mixed feelings about it, because you don't get into athletics without caring about kids, and get into athletics without caring about the people that we ultimately serve. And we're not talking about the fans, but we're talking about the young people that are on the front lines. And so one of the things I think we do need to consider, I'm not necessarily a proponent of us playing, and I'm not necessarily a proponent of us not playing. And I would say, I don't know where I sit right in the middle, because there are a lot of kids that are going to lose. You're talking 4 years of opportunity to play. And those young people are not going to be able to play, and it's a time that they can't get back. All right, I'm done. My time's up. All right. We're talking about modifying games. We're talking about cutting games from 28 games in a tournament to 16 games and no tournament. And you've got kids that are placed in a situation and they're at the mercy of the NCAA. Or they're at the mercy of these universities now. And so in order for me to 100% come out and say no play, all right, we need to be able to do something and put something on the table for our kids that are in positions that they're going to move on and graduate, or they're out of semesters, or they're out of eligibility if they don't play, and allow them to have their final experience. Or in some kids' situations, they may have gone to college as a freshman, redshirted, and they're thrusted into a situation where they have to play. If you're a senior right now and you have a redshirt year, or a year that you can sit, and they talk about cutting your last year to 15 or 16 games, and you can't have the experience of a full year. Obviously, we understand that the virus is the virus. We're in a global health crisis. There's nothing that can be done about it. And so at the same time, I do have a compassion for the young people that are in that situation, that are in that situation without their own fault, that may end up graduating, and they may not be able to come back and pay to go to school to play another year. So those are things I think we have to pay attention to as well. Coach
Keaton, what do you have to say about it? Teddy, what do you have to say about it? Coach Keaton.
I think they all hit on the right things. I think they talked about, I love what Coach Walker talked about, the human part of it. When you have a child or somebody that's involved, that you got to think other than yourself. And when you coach this game, I don't care what level you at or how you do it, you fall in love with those kids. And when you stepped in their parents' house and you talked about taking care of those kids, that's what you promised them. So when you know that there's not a way to protect them, that you can say we go to practice and you know, he catches it, he dies. I just had to deal with a kid this weekend that played for me at Stillman. He passed away from COVID-19, and he's 25 years old. And you know, that hurt me and it affected me. I couldn't even sleep the other night because I'm thinking about his mom. That was her only child. That was her son. So when you think about those things, you know, you hate to be emotional as a coach. You hate to think you know, everybody think we're human, but we're very human and we love the people we serve. And if you love them like you say you do, you wouldn't put them in a position in your heart to say, I'm going to put him out here and, you know, look for him to fail.
So,
Coach
LT, Ms. Gortman and LT, I want y'all to chime in because y'all are the most recent athletes, right? So can y'all chime in on how you feel about, you know, playing, not playing? Where would you guys stand if you were, well, LT, you're a former player, Ms. Gorman, you are too. Where would you guys stand on it? On playing, not playing, or wanting to play?
Well, with me, I feel like you want to play, but at the same time, with the epidemic going on, like he said, it's nothing you can do about that at all. You know, for seniors, I hate it for them because a lot of times your senior year is that time to show colleges exactly what you have that developed all 4 years in high school. You know, you want to show off your senior year, and a lot of kids might not play at all. I know a lot of kids that haven't played a single game yet. I know kids that play one game and maybe might not even be able to play a second one because it's so hard to control with the high school and college level because there's more kids and there's more schools to try to make sure it don't spread around. Regardless if you have virtual learning and people going to school at the same time, you still can't stop from it spreading. Now, what we've seen with the NBA, the bubble, you know, you haven't had any positive cases yet. With the NBA, there's not that many teams. With the NFL, there's not that many teams. But I feel like with college and high school, that's so much to control, and we can't control everything that we don't know as it is.
Right.
And if I'd like to piggyback, if I could, Raquel, Lee, and Marvin, off of several of the points that they just made, particularly, you know, Coach Pitts, Coach Walker, and Coach Keaton. Two things come to mind clearly. Number one, with the arguments that they were making and the statements that they were passionately making, there's no easy answer in all of this. And every solution that we come up with, Lee, you know full well as a campus president, every answer you give comes at a loss. It comes at a consequence.
Right.
Something's going to have to give up. Something's going to have to change. And the same for the coaching staff as well. So it's very difficult to come up with a right answer or a true safe solution because there's always going to be a potential point of exposure or something's going to come at a loss to those athletes that have worked so hard and not getting that opportunity. The other thing, particularly with Coach Pitts, when he talked about how just talking about the potential progression of what the virus can do in the body, you know, can be scary. And it is. And I don't mean for any of that to be scary. I mean more to educate and let people know what some of the real risks are. But in that light, especially to Coach Pitts's point and some of the others, in that we're seeing the positive effects of the basic guidelines of distancing, masking.
Right.
Just today in our state of South Carolina alone, you know, the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Controls, or DHEC as they're called, released some data that was done, and approximately 40% of our state is under a mask ordinance. 40% of our state is required to wear a mask outside or in businesses and during gatherings. Of that 40% of the state that's under a mask order, we're seeing reductions of 46.3% in the rates of hospitalizations and rates of positive COVID testing. So that's proof positive right there that a simple mask can work, distancing can work, trying to structure things within the, you know, structuring drills so athletes are able to do line drills, agility drills, single file at a time with distancing apart. Some training might be better than no training. And so it's no easy answer, but while things are scary, the basics work. and the basics do help prevent the spread of this. That's for sure.
Ms. Gortman, go ahead. I know you were trying to get in.
Oh yeah, Dr. Roberts, we appreciate all of the knowledge that you have. I think for me, coaching the youth now, because that's what I do, I had to ask myself, was the risk greater than the reward? Because I have some seniors too that are trying to get into college this year, and it broke my heart to decide that I wasn't going to play. I think the facts that I went off at the time was that everyone's recovery was different. And right now, at that moment, it was just too many discrepancies and unknowns to really know the long-term health effects that it has on athletes. And so if anything, if we play, I think it's vital now, if not ever before, to make sure that athletes, especially those COVID athletes, are given regular echocardiograms and other regular checkups to ensure their safety. And I also think that it depends on the level of play, like high school, college, pros. I currently don't think on the high school level that we are equipped and capable of meeting these standards.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and change the subject, Mark, because
let me ask Coach Keaton and Coach Walker real quick. Just in terms of, and Coach Pitts to an extent, but this may not really come to you because your situation is a little bit different. But with the two of you, HBCUs, and especially you, Coach Walker, how do you keep your guys engaged right now? During this time, and Coach Walker, I know you're in limbo on kind of what you guys are going to do in terms of a season. Coach Keaton, I know you guys have made some decisions, but how do you keep your guys engaged in terms of still being interested in school? Because a lot of guys come to just hoop. A lot of guys come to just play football and throw a football. How are you keeping your programs engaged and kind of guiding your players to do the right things right now?
Well, I'll say first, I think my situation is a bit different. Remember that we have all course offerings that are hybrid, face-to-face, and virtual. And so I only have one player that's on campus. And that recommendation kind of comes behind the fact that the gyms are closed and we don't have anything to do. And Coach Walker's going to be thrust in a situation of trying to put guys out of the gym and keep guys, with the upper administration. So we're Zooming like we're doing now every day academically. We're really trying to stay focused academically. We're doing a lot of team building things, group me messages, just those things, and in hopes of keeping spirits high in case we're able to play or start back with our action for second semester that we're ready to do so.
Right. Coach,
from our standpoint, we have our kids on campus right now. So with our kids being on campus, we've tested them twice. We got a lot of hybrid classes going on. They put the gym, we couldn't go to the weight rooms. I had them in the weight room at 8 to 10 people at a time. We were working out using the mask the whole nine, but they put a complete halt on that. So we started this book club, which we had already started. It's kind of like we read these books about leadership and different things to help them, grow. We still have our daily Microsoft Teams calls. We get to talk about things. There's a lot of subjects like tonight when I get off with you guys. We're going to talk about the situation that's in Wisconsin, to help them understand and build some team ethics, to let them understand what's going on. These are the type of things that you have to do outside of, a lot of people have emotions. A lot of people have feelings. A lot of people have different things, but I want them to understand how to grow and understand that this is, so what, now what? This happened. There's nothing we can do about it. We got to keep moving. We got to take care of our business in the classroom, and we got to focus on what we can control. We can't control what's going on in the world. It's a pandemic. It's not just happening at Allen. It's happening across the world. So everybody's in the same situation. How we handle this will determine how our character and how well we overcome this will produce what we produce next year. So they know the classroom is important. We can't do one without the other. So we have study hall right now. One of the coaches is handling study hall at 7 o'clock. We do one at 7 and one at 7:30. So now we got our guys that need that special attention. And we also got some of the faculty get involved with it to help us out, to keep them, kind of engaged. And if we get to bring them back and do some other things, we're going to set up, some virtual gaming. Or let them play Madden tournaments and basketball tournaments, on the video games. And that's a big business now. Nobody knows anything about it, but the gaming industry is big and the kids play it on a regular basis. So we can set up TVs at different stations so they can have a good time. I'm going to do everything I can to keep them engaged so that they won't lose focus.
So I want to, anybody that knows me has watched this show I come in a little bit differently from the economic side of it. So I want to get Vincent and Elliot in here as corporate executives, and I get it. The high schools, I'm sort of against them playing, but we're going to go towards the bigger schools, the Power 5 schools, and we talk about $2.9 billion generated by the Power 5 schools together. And on our show, when we had Dr. Roberts on, the NFL model, they paid $75 million to BioReference Company to test their players every day, for while they were in training camp and the first 2 weeks of the season, and look at the positivity rate. Now, $75 million, when you look at the Big Ten, made $780 million last year, and the SEC made $721 million. So my question to you, Elliot and Vincent, why do you think, because, theoretically, the Big Ten could pay $75 million to a laboratory to test their 1,500 players, or they could go to a bank and get a loan to pay that $75 million. Why do you think that's a reluctance to allocate that money to the college athletes? That would be my question to you two.
I'll go first, Vincent.
You said to allocate it to the athletes?
No, to allocate it for the testing, because as we know, the NFL is doing it, and their positivity rate is right around 0.46 right now. So that means that if right now I can get 2 NFL football teams, I can take them out in my backyard and they can play football, and there's a very likelihood nobody would contract COVID. So I'm asking, why do you think the colleges are so reluctant to allocate that type of money?
One word, liability.
Yeah.
There you go.
Throughout my years as an engineering executive, there have been many times when we've had the opportunity to develop some type of product or some technology that would be involved in the medical industry. And we knew that it could generate millions and millions and millions of dollars. And we made the decision not to do it because of the potential liability. And I think that, you look at the Big Ten and others, and I don't know what rationale the SEC and the other conferences are using, but when you look at the potential liability, it's just too great. This is something that we don't know anything about yet. We're still guessing on this thing. And if God forbid, if you go out there and you start having kids, coming down with COVID, now they played against, Auburn, and you don't know how many kids they came in contact with, and all the potential liability is just too great. So I think that when you look at it from that standpoint, that's probably what is influencing the Big Ten's decision, versus the other conferences. That liability is huge, because if it could mean, let's just say, in all the numbers you just named, which were very, very high numbers, large numbers, but let's just say you start getting hit with billion-dollar lawsuits, then it's all for naught. So liability, that's what I would say.
EJ?
I think the other thing, and I'm in total agreement with that. When you look at companies that are deemed essential during this tough pandemic, and the company that Vincent and I work for, Raytheon Technologies, is one of them. We've been working every day because we provide products and services for our warfighters that are very necessary. So, but the key thing is, this company has made a commitment from day one that even if we incur a loss to the bottom line, we have to maintain our operations for the good of the country and our soldiers. But I can tell you that first and foremost is the people. And we have spent an ungodly amount of money to make sure that we're protecting the people. And I don't think if we were not able to put the plans in place to make sure that we protected every individual that works for this company and is coming in to
continue to build the products and supply the services for our warfighters, I would think we would shut down as well. And even in a situation where some of our businesses will lose money, and we know it because we have put so much money into protecting the people to provide the essential product and service. When you get into the sports world, it's not essential. We love it and we all need it, because what is this world without sport? But I think we're getting a flavor for what it is. And like Vincent said, and like all the other speakers said, the liability is just so great that some of the conferences just have chosen to not risk it and risk their liability.
I want to redirect to Dr. Roberts, though, really quick, Marv. Dr. Roberts, how reliable, for me anyway, because I come from a perspective of if we have 53 people that have tested negative for COVID on one team and they're testing every day, how reliable are those tests that the NFL is giving their players, in your opinion? How reliable are those tests?
That's the key question to testing. Every medical test that you have, whether it's a COVID-19 test, whether it's a throat swab for strep throat, whether it's an x-ray, every medical test undergoes two rigorous categories. It's something called specificity and sensitivity. And we have to look at those issues. How sensitive a test is how many people with the actual virus does this test catch as positive? So a sensitive test, if you say, for example, 53 people, if 50 of those people have the virus, then we should get back close to 50 tests. That test is very sensitive for finding the coronavirus. The other aspect of medical testing is the specific or specificity of the test. And specificity pares it down even more to find out who is truly negative, if in fact they are negative with no evidence of the virus. So we look at the rates of specificity and sensitivity. The test purchased by the NFL through the Biodome company, they have a very good rate. They've had a very high efficacy rate to their testing. One thing that we are being concerned about in both the medical, the coaching, the industry community, management, city, county management as well, is we're seeing such an increased need for testing that companies are making these tests and trying to churn them out as fast as they can. And we worry about quality control. We have seen an enormous rate of false positives and false negatives. And I think the false negatives are more dangerous for sure, because if someone does in fact have COVID and they're deemed negative, well, now you've got a sleeper cell going to the store and walking out in the community, and that's a problem. But I think the tests that are being used by the NFL, by the NBA, obviously because the money behind that is able to purchase a level of quality to that. My granddad said it only costs a little more to go first class. And so when you're able to do something quite like that, you're able to get that kind of testing. The type of test being used there is something called the viral PCR test. And the viral PCR test is extremely accurate because it's looking for the actual genetic DNA and RNA makeup of corona. It's about as specific and sensitive as you can get to whether or not coronavirus is in your mucosal secretions, your saliva, your blood. And so the fact that people like the NBA, the NFL, even the military now are using PCR testing, that's the way to go. We're seeing some pockets of PCR testing able to reach the communities, the cities, the rural areas, but very small numbers. Some of them are going with serum tests and other kinds of tests that might not be as accurate. So yes, the testing is a problem.
Yeah. So I'm gonna liven this up a little bit. I know we being very PC right now with some things, but I'm specifically gonna aim this at my coaches. And I know y'all might be able to answer, you might not, but isn't it pretty ironic, or isn't it convenient for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to cancel their seasons? Do you think it has something to do with the players coming together and starting to demand revenue sharing, demanding health benefits, starting to get a voice to say, you know what, we the product, we make all this go. And now all the, the Big Ten came out, they had a schedule, they had it all ready to go. Then all of a sudden these players, thousands of players from the Big Ten and Pac-12 came together and said, nah, we about to change this model. So then conveniently now the seasons have been shut down. What y'all think this is about? You really think it's about liability, or you think it's about the fact that they don't want this shift in the way college athletes and the way college sports works? And Coach Keaton, I'm gonna let you go because I know you but stuff to say about this.
Well, I really don't have nothing to say. I plead the fifth. But it's true. And I think a lot of them backed off. I mean, I'll speak from an honest standpoint. It's true. I think that they don't have an answer for it. They don't have they didn't want it to become a show. As you see tonight, that they stopped playing basketball tonight. This is getting very serious now. It's starting to come to the forefront, and they got a platform. They got an opportunity during a situation, during a pandemic, that they could actually take advantage of what they're doing. And I think that when it got to the league, the conferences and different things, they had no answer for it. So they pulled back. And that's my thought process on that's how I feel. And that's just my opinion. I don't know what they were thinking. I wasn't at their board tables, but I think that's what happened.
Well, Coach Keaton, I think you're right. I think it buys them time to deal with it. It buys them time to get in their corporate rooms and say, how are we going to counter these guys and how do we get them back in control?
Yeah, because they messing with the money.
They have a lot of time to figure it out.
They messing with the money.
Yeah. Want to chime in?
Come on, well, I need you to say something.
Listen, I'm just gonna say this, and I've been just over here just processing a lot of things since Dr. Davis spoke, and
I know I like them too.
One of the things that's bothering me right now is the conversation that the team doctors are having with the head coaches.
Right.
Are they having the same conversation with the players?
No.
Because if a doctor tells the head coach that not only can it affect the player now and later, why would they have a season? That's
Coach Pitts, I'm with you all the way.
Listen, when he spoke on that, I know I haven't heard from our team doctor about what's going on, like the effect of how it can affect you later. And people are missing that point. If you had a bunch of athletes in a room and you tell them that it can affect you now this way and later down the road this way, or you really want to jeopardize your health for that?
Marv, we're not by ourselves, buddy.
Let me tell you something. I just think it'll be a whole different thing and a lot of conversation and these parents that speaking out against the Big Ten and everybody not having these seasons. But I think that if they were in front of a doctor and they know the consequences of what can happen with their child, I don't know. I don't think
let's take ourselves back. Coach Walker, I know you played. Walt, we played together. Sean, I know you hooped. I know you put game in. Mr. Walker, I know you put game in. Let's take ourselves back to our 18 to 20-year-old self. And if we had a doctor sit in front of us in the locker room and tell us there might be some long-term effects if you get COVID-19 or if you get this, and it might be best for you not to play, but the season is still going to go on. If any of you not going to play at 18 to 22 years old back in the day, are any of y'all going to say, oh yeah, you know what? Dang, at 40 years old, I might be affected by this. Well, any of y'all not play?
I think you can take a good look at just the conduct of the kids now that have chosen to come back to school, and the parties and all those kind of things that are causing universities to send kids back home. So that's a realistic, I talked about that a little bit with one of my friends last night and on another topic, but when we're sitting here on the outside, we're thinking extremely reasonably. We're thinking very adult-like.
Right.
It's really important for us to put ourselves in the mold that when we were 18 to 22, what our feelings would have been like. And, always say that we want to make sure that in our thought pattern that we don't become sanctimonious in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s, and we remember what we were like when we were 16 to 22. And each and every one of us want to be out there playing if we could. Each and every one, none of us think that anything bad is going to happen to us when we leave home or we put a helmet on, we go to play ball. And so I think, again, that was my point from the very beginning. I have a cross section behind it, although we're acting and what our spirit is saying is that we need to act on the side of what's healthy and socially health conscious and responsible. Simultaneously, when you're 18 to 22, you don't think death's upon you. And so,
Lee, let me give you another business scenario. Take a look at the Boeing 737 MAX airplane that's been grounded. Been grounded for well over a year now. 2 accidents, in the ocean, killed people, 1 in the mountains. Now, Boeing says that they've done everything they need to do to fix that plane. It's fixed. But how many of us would get on a 737 MAX right now? I know I wouldn't. I have over 1 million miles in the air.
I think we're losing him.
Yeah,
Marvin.
But this
Hold on, Lee.
I'm not a proponent of any of that.
Convince me to get on a 737 MAX airplane in the air. Was that me? Did you lose me?
You sort of broke up. But,
okay.
I think what you were saying was we wouldn't get on that airplane because we know the liability that comes with getting on that airplane.
You know the liability, you know the potential, and with this corona, until there is a vaccine, there is too much unknown and too much risk involved to chance it. I mean, it's just real. And so why chance it with that much risk involved?
I tend to, I look at it a tad bit differently because I'm not a doctor. Nobody else on this Zoom call is a doctor, except for Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts, why is the consensus among medical professionals so differing when they come down to short-term effect, long-term effect on athletes, now effect on non-athletes? Why is it so varying and differing? Because you have medical professionals who I'm not going to challenge their credibility that advise the Pac-10 one way, the SEC one way, the Big Ten one way, and I may be naive, but I don't think they're sliding them $1,000 to say it the way they want to. So tell me why Dr. Robertson, and then we're going to move on. Tell me why you think that is.
Well, we don't know, Lee. We haven't seen any footage from under the table, so I don't know if they're sliding money or not.
Could be.
However, that is a frustrating thing in the field of medicine, and there's several things that go to that. Number one, the emerging pace of research it's a double-edged sword. It's great that we live in a time where research is able to be done at such an accelerated pace compared to even 50 years ago. We're able to find out things more in a more rapid manner, in a more accessible manner, and update our understanding of things. One thing we may say last week could be disproven 2 weeks from now. And so we do have to have that. And when research is reported, it unfortunately in the field of medicine, it needs to be done with an air of humility. We formerly believed this. We have now seen evidence of this, and to be in everybody's best interest, we need to change. A lot of people will hold on to notions. They will hold on to titles. they will hold on to positions and they will stick their heels in and say, well, this is the way it has to be. Look at what's even happening in the government. The FDA is a government agency that was created to serve as an independent watchdog for the safety of drugs, the safety of vaccines, the correct administration of things. And now you have doctors, MDs, people of extreme educational accomplishment being swayed, pressured, bullied by political officials.
Right.
And that kind of stuff has no place in the reporting of pure science fact. There should be no emotion behind it. It should be, we found this, we've seen this, we need to tell other people about this so we can either help them or inform that person enough in a free world for them to make their own educated decisions. So Lee, I think that number one, the reason there's so many differing opinions is that we are getting so many different pockets of research from around the world, emerging research right here in the US, in Germany, the Netherlands, in China. China just gave us a great piece of information this week in the reinfection of someone who had it. And we didn't think previously that might happen. Now we've had someone who's gotten it twice. And this changes our entire focus of immunity and antibodies now. So we've got rapid pace emerging research. And sadly, on the other end of it, we do have agenda-based egos that can distort the manner in which information may be given to people at large.
Right.
I have a question.
Lee, go ahead,
Can I
please.
say something? I think I want to ask this question. I know when we're talking about the long-term effects of it, I know that after you've been tested or whatever, the virus can last in your system for a certain amount of time. And this is for the doctor. Are we talking about long-term effects? Whereas as the virus is still inside of your body, it's affecting your system so that over time it's going to break you down? Or are we talking about maybe once we get over it past those 3 months, 10 years from now, because of the virus, it's going to affect us health-wise?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great point of clarification. When we speak of the long-term effects of COVID-19 in an individual, in an athlete, for example, in that one person's body, what I mean by that and what should be meant by medical professionals by that is the damage caused during the COVID-19 infectious process. COVID-19 may ramp up in someone for a period of weeks to months. And then as the virus ultimately slows its replication rate inside the body, as the person builds antibodies and ultimately overcomes that, if they are lucky enough to be able to, their body has quote unquote fought off COVID-19. However, during the time that COVID-19 was active in them, the reason people feel so bad is that the virus begins to damage your healthy tissues and healthy organs. So what we could be seeing is a person may survive COVID, get better, look fine, but they begin to have symptoms, shortness of breath, fatigue, loss of functional and aerobic capacity in an athlete. We do that X-ray and echocardiogram or ultrasound, and we find scarring on the heart from when the virus was active and damaging their heart tissue during the fever process, during the most intense periods of the virus. So when we say long-term effect, it's the scarring, the organ damage, the body damage, the failure after the virus has been quote unquote fought off by their antibodies. And those are very lasting effects. Those are things that could really change the trajectory of a person's life entirely, and certainly a player's life as well. That's a great point and a great question.
So
okay, Lee, can I say something for you? Now, with all that being said, Lee, you just heard from the great doctor. I'm gonna go back to your question. How could the Big Ten be advised this way, and how could the SEC be advised this way? He said it along the lines in his question when he answered. It's political pressure, it's money. Those are things that people don't want to talk about, because he just told you the political, we all practice in medicine. That's what I tell. The reason why doctors have different opinions, because guess what they are? They're practicing medicine. There's been not enough research done. There's not enough stuff out there. They don't know what the long-lasting effects is going to happen. He just gave a synopsis of what he felt and what he studied and what he's seen from the data that he's driven from what they see. So he's seen it. Everybody else seen it. So why can't The other people see it because they got political pressure. They got dollars that's involved. They got TV money that's got to be made, and they want their players to go back out there to please America. And that's what it boils down to, period, point blank.
So,
And
Coach,
at the end of the day, we know that the player
You can't test
is a
someone
flight risk.
once every 2 weeks and think that you're going to control a virus. You can't
No.
do it. That's not something that you can do. If you have the money and you can test every day and you can do the things that Dr. Roberts described with the echocardiograms and all that stuff that the NFL have built into their testing model, then you can play sports. If you're not willing to allocate those type of funds, then no, you can't play. That's the bottom line. We can talk about it, but there is testing, from what Dr. Roberts said, that is very reliable. And if you as the Big Ten or whoever will allocate that money, 75, 80, $100 million to do it, to make that fund, those funds that you just said, then do it and protect our kids. If you can't, then don't play. That's the only thing I say.
So let's kind of piggyback off that. Let's change directions here. We'll stay with COVID-19, but and especially for my coaches here, because you guys are in this, you know what this looks like. How does this change the face of the NCAA college basketball, football? Because it's on full display how we feel about amateurism in college athletics. So what does college sports look like post COVID-19? Where do we go at this point? Because it's going nowhere. So how does this change the landscape of college sports? I want to address this really to my coaches, because you guys are in this. What do you think? How does it look moving forward?
I think that the NCAA got to come to some type of agreement for the seniors or the upper class. This is a whole body of work that has to change. I think that, like for football or basketball, we have potential to be a draft pick. I think you should be allowed to put your name in the hat. And if your name is not called, you have that right to go back to school. But you have to put things in place, like you can't sign with an agent, but you're allowed to put your name in the hat to give yourself an opportunity to see if you get drafted. If you don't, then you come back, you'll play your senior season, if we do have that season to get that in place. And then for young men and young women that don't have the potential to be drafted, you also give them opportunities, okay, well, you have the opportunity to come back if you want to play your senior season, or you can get your degree and go on to the real world and move on with your life. But you have to I think you have to put something in place by the NCAA to give them to, okay, do I want to play or do I want to go into the real world and start my life? You know what I'm saying? But I think the NCAA has to put something in place like that for the athletes to say, okay, they'll feel bad about themselves. That's the reason why they want to play, is because they don't want to lose out on the opportunity to get drafted. But I think you got something in place that, hey, you can put your name in the hat this year. If you get drafted, a lot of them athletes will be fine. Something high profile. They want to be drafted. Just that simple.
Do you guys think that should be a long-term deal by the NCAA, or just a short-term deal for these players, considering the climate and the times that we're in? Or you think this should just be implemented moving forward because this is just where we are these days? Coach Keaton, what do you think?
I think there's going to be a big disappointment here. The Power Five is already showing you who they really are. There's going to be a breakup here.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the Power Five, and then it's going to be the NCAA. And if this keeps going at the rate it's going, the only thing the NCAA truly controls is men's basketball. That is where they make their money at. That is $1 billion industry for them. Now, when you speak in terms of football, the Power Fives are the only people that collectively bring a check into their building that they finish in the black. Every other sport, in the studies that I've done when I was in grad school at Columbia, you can't find where everybody else, it's a loss almost. For everybody else, or they almost break even. So when you talk about a divorce, they don't even call it the NCAA playoffs no more. It's called the BCS Bowl. You can see it already happen. This has been already in the making. And now with Notre Dame taking the move that it made to join the ACC, to be a part of that Power Five group, that tells you even furthermore that there's going to be some changes that's going to happen, and nobody wants to talk about it. That's why Mark Emmert couldn't speak, because he's at a loss for words right now. He don't know what to do, because when I got all the money over here, I got the paycheck. The only thing I can do is try to figure out a way to say what I got, which is basketball, which is a big business for them. If they can figure out a way to save basketball, the NCAA will be fine. But as far as the future of the Power Five, I really believe that boat almost docking with the rope unturned, and they're putting it on, and they about to sail off somewhere else.
Coach Walker, you got some thoughts on it?
You know what? From the standpoint of Division II, it's just a great question, and it's one I never thought about. So, you know, I think it's important to think about that, because right now everybody just kind of trying to think about 6 months from now, 7 months from now, how things may be able to get back to normal. And so that's a great question to think about, what normal is going to be. And so I'm not really sure what that landscape is going to be like. But I do know it'll be a trickle down. And so some of what we're talking about with the Power Fives and the high major Division Ones and even low major Division Ones, it'll trickle down to what we're able to do on our side. I'm really not really sure how to answer that question. That's question.
I think what Pitt said is a very true, valid thing that's going to happen. They're going to give them that option to, after a while, just go ahead, because you gotta think about. I gotta tell Lee all the time, I take off my coaching hat and put on my administration hat. From a business standpoint, do I not give them what they want and turn around and lose them? Right. Or do I figure out a way to come to the table and I negotiate with them to try to meet them halfway? So the player part, where if I can put my name in the hat and I don't get drafted, can I come back and play my season? That's an easy no-brainer for me. If I'm sitting at the table, hey, give them a year back, let them come back and play, and we done with that. That's an easy no-brainer. But some other things, there's issues there that when they sit down, as you know, I've been on the NCAA calls, I've been on all the little subcommittees, and I love to hear them talk. But really, in all actuality, it comes down to dollars and cents. Basketball controls what they do. All the rules are really much based around, people think it's football. It's truly not. It's based off basketball, because that's where the money is made.
And right now, they talking about for us is pushing it back to January right now, and they talking about a bubble for us. So it's kind of like, you know, our tournament's in Greensboro, North Carolina. So they talking about putting all the teams in Greensboro, North Carolina, and put them in a bubble and try to have a season.
Wow.
You know,
well, I can tell you one thing: the bubble certainly does work.
You know, at the end of the day, we probably don't know what the normal is going to be post this pandemic, but I think all of us would be naive if we don't believe that there will be a new normal.
Yeah. That's right.
It's going to change. The way we are today will be different than the way we are once we get beyond the pandemic. And certainly, whether it's the Power Five breaking off, something is going to change about the landscape as it exists today. We know that.
Vincent, you have anything on that?
No, I completely agree. You know, and I tell people all the time, it's just like 9/11. You know, that we're still living with changes that occurred because of 9/11 today, and we'll be doing them for the rest of our lives, going through security at airports and things like that. That was all a result of 9/11. This pandemic has changed things tremendously, and there will be some major changes that we will be living with for the rest of our lives. And you know, for one, this company that we work for, you know, this company has about 130,000 employees worldwide. They've already said that even beyond COVID and beyond vaccines, they will never have all employees back on site again. So that's just the way it's going to be. And we're going to see so many changes, and, you know, football and basketball and all sports, they're going to implement these changes, and it's going to become part of our new norm.
So with one thing that Coach Pitts just said, and I'm going to open this up to everybody, you know, it was pretty telling what you said that they were thinking about doing, putting everybody in a bubble. Does that now change amateurism? Are we now admitting that they're not students, they're athletes, and their students second. If we're gonna say we're gonna put you in a bubble, take you to Greensboro to do a season. So was it just majorly important for them to get students back on campus right now to be? Is this what they wanted to do all along? That's my question, because now you're just admitting that this about money. This is what it was about, just getting these students back to collect that little room and board, whatever it was that we needed to get. But we gonna have a season. So
hey, can we start with Sean and LT on that one? Because I want to hear their opinions on this. LT, please, let me hear this.
Well, to tell you the truth, I think, they always say money rules everything. And being an athlete, you know that. When you get there, when you leave there, you knew it was all about money. Yep. How many people you can get in the stands, yep. How much exposure you can get to that school. It's always about the money. Now, when it comes to the bubble, I feel like that's always going to be something that they're going to do to make sure they get that money. And we've seen that the NBA tried it first. I think they was the kind of experiment thing to do. They did their own bubble, and they want to see how it worked. And to me, you see the playoffs going on, so it's working. It worked successfully, really. But at the same time, every school, and I want to kind of go off on the last thing, Power 5 schools have the money to do so. Division II, Division III, even some schools in Division I doesn't still have as much money as the top schools do have. So at the end of the day, I feel like, to me, the student athletes should be told 100% the truth. The short term, the long term, everything. It's really their decision to play, because I know when they said, what would you do at 18, 19 years old? Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth first, then I can choose my decision off that. Because if you tell me something that might be terrible, I might be like, okay, maybe sports is not it. Because being an athlete, you're around more people, you're around more sweat, you're around more blood, you're around a lot more stuff that normal people on a normal basis don't be around.
LT, let me ask you a serious question real quick. And Sean, I'm gonna ask you this too, because I know you. Were you an athlete? Were you a student athlete, or were you an athlete that took some classes? How do you to stay eligible?
Oh yeah.
Where y'all come in?
Let's get to it, because I'll say this: Lee doesn't think that there's a such thing as athletes and student athlete. There is a such thing as just an athlete in college, but Lee doesn't necessarily believe that. So please answer this question.
Well, don't speak for Lee, Raquel. Lee can speak for herself.
That's what you said last week.
Well, to be honest, I'm an athlete. I have seen people that went to school to be straight athletes. You have those people that really didn't get that help in high school, and they was moved along because of athletic abilities. And you get to see it in college also. So being a student athlete, that's what the image they want to put on you. But to the coaches and to the fans, you're an athlete first. And what you do in the classroom is second.
Yeah.
Sean, you feel the same?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Sean.
I feel the same, but also you still have to be academically sound. And I'll say that because, if you don't have that GPA, then you can't be an athlete. So your coaches, they do care about that. But at the same time, me personally, at 20, I was more of an athlete. Now, that's not to say, no, I got my work done. I focused on academics, but only because I was an athlete. I tell my people all the time, just honestly, at that age, if it wasn't for sports, I don't know that I'd be a college graduate.
Let me ask you this, Sean. I have a follow-up question for you and Coach Walker. There are times where we have professors that you just didn't pass the class, but you got a C. And that happens to every single athlete. You didn't pass the class, but you're going to get a C. If you're shooting that ball the right way and you throwing that football the right way, you're going to get a C. And your coach is going to show up to the professor's office and say, hey.
Okay. You know what, Raquel, let me add to that. I know that happens. Now, I personally say that didn't happen for me. Because I'm gonna be straight honest with you. Mathematics, it was a class I straight failed. They didn't give me no sympathy because I was an athlete. I had to take it again, and I'm like, you know what? I got to get this done because I want to play basketball.
Right.
But in some cases, now, did we have tutors? Yes. Did we have tutors with the answers? Yes. You know, so, you know, there are some other things that we had, but, you know, as far as that one in particular, I can't vouch for that.
Oh, the male athletes certainly have a little bit of a leg up. I'll tell you that.
I would like the coaches to answer this, and I want Vincent and Elliot to chime in. Should the athletes, should they be employees of a college that just plays college sports then? Since we put it all out there, let's be honest about it. I always condone, should they be employees of a college that just play sports and generate revenue for the college? Because LT spent more time generating revenue for Louisville than some of his instructors and the dean of some of the schools. So should they just be employees? I'll just throw it out there.
Well, my daughter has work study in college. So she can work and earn money while she's going to school. I think the athletes should be the same way. I mean, they should be paid. They are the ones generating the revenue for that school. I mean, for the most part, I mean, the significant revenue. You know, I'm not gonna pay $300 to go and see Nick Saban. I mean, that's not gonna happen.
Whoa.
Nick, I know he's a great coach, but I'm not gonna pay $300 to go see Nick. Okay, that's not gonna happen. But the athletes are what the fans are coming to see. They're the ones that's generating that revenue, and they should certainly they should be paid as if it was a work study. For instance, they're gonna get paid a whole lot more money than my daughter is for her work study, but they should be getting paid. They should be sharing some of that money for sure. I've always felt that way.
I'll tell you what, some colleges do give all the athletes work study, because when I played, my whole team had a work study. We all had work study that we didn't show up to.
And got paid for.
And we got paid. Yep. We all had a work study, and we were all in the athletic department. So there are, and I was at a Division II school, so I know it's happening at Division I schools. It has to be, because it certainly happened for us.
I think the NCAA has really missed the opportunity when it comes to all of this paying the players. I, for one, as some of you know, my son just graduated from Furman, got a degree. He was a student. But a few years ago, when they passed the cost of attendance rule, and it allowed the schools to give the students a little money if there was a difference between the scholarship and the cost of attendance. That $300-400 or whatever that they used to deposit into his account, that meant a lot. It meant a lot to me as a dad. And I think had the NCAA just said, look, the right thing to do is to give these athletes $500, $1,000 or whatever. And for the majority of parents and probably the players, they'll have the money to go take the girlfriends out on the weekend or whatever. They probably would not have this issue today. But they're reluctant to give them anything. To toe that hard line. You're in school, you got a scholarship, get the education and be quiet and generate these millions and billions of dollars for us. That's where I think they've missed the boat. $300, $400, $500 for a college student.
Yeah, that's greed. That's what it's called. It's greed.
Coaches, I want to hear from the coaches. Should they be employees of the college that play football or basketball or whatever?
I think so. And another thing they should do with, I think, every university, if you an athlete at that university, I think your jersey should be sold in the bookstore somewhere. I think you should get some type cut off of that. Like I think if you take basketball, I mean football maybe a lot, but I still think it should happen, because I think if you sold 20 jerseys in the bookstore, 10 of your family members are gonna want to buy it anyway to wear it to the game.
Yep.
Right.
They're gonna purchase it, and then you have some places that you have fans that love you. They're gonna purchase the jersey because they want to rock the jersey at the game. They want to get a sign. So That's another way you can get your money back. You get money back on being a student athlete. But I do think they should get paid.
They should get
sure.
paid for their name.
Yes.
So Walter, what's gonna happen if I don't get to play and my jersey in the bookstore and nobody buys it?
But guess what? You got somebody. Listen, coach. But coach, your family gonna buy them, and then not only if your family buy, you may be that one player that the fan be like, put him in the game. Put him in the game. They gonna love you. Rudy. They want that jersey, coach.
Yeah.
It'll be Rudy. Coach Walker, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I don't know. There's another great question. I mean, from my perspective, from the Division II side, the question that I would have about that would be the balance. Like you're talking about Power 5 and you're talking about all this money, where from my perspective, that money's not there. So there's not cost of attendance. I mean, that cost of attendance that coach was just talking about, brother was just talking about. My son got $420 a month last year. It was great, and I taught him how to invest that money. But listen, there's these Power 5 schools are getting $1,800 a month. All right, they're getting $2,200 a month, and so there is some sense of pay there outside of the fact that they're eating at training tables and they've got protein shake bars and all these kind of things. So the question is about balance. When the University of Alabama's football team can get paid and Norfolk State's football team can get paid the same amount of money, and I think that's what our real issue is. Then I say, because still the recruit is not going to be the same, the pay is going to be different. The pay is going to be different. Like working for Microsoft and working for a private, independently owned computer company. So I don't know, but I just know from a Division II perspective, from my perspective, we're just a long ways away from that. So it's not something I really think about. When I was at Grambling, as the head coach, I mean, we were moving out of APR. So that student athlete question that you just asked, there's a lot of these small schools that are really struggling with trying to meet the numbers for academic progress rating, and so they're a long ways away from paying a kid to come to school, where academically you don't have enough support system to take an academic advisor on the road with you when you play a game. So I mean, there's a lot there to be questioned, and I think when you start asking those questions, you're only talking about the top of the mountain.
That's
right.
Talking about coming down the mountain.
LT, can you just let us know what your day looked like playing at an ACC school? Tell us what your day looked like as a football player at the University of Louisville.
To be honest, depending on what part of the season we was on. During season, off season, you had mat drills at 4 o'clock. Depending on your class schedule, you had you had lifting at 6, lifting at 8, lifting at 11:30. Whichever one that worked around your class schedule. But regardless, you might have class at 8, but if you have to go to that 6 o'clock workout right before you just had 4 o'clock mat drills, that's still, there's still a lot to do as a student athlete, because you still have multiple classes after that, film study, training room. Regardless what type of injury you have to do rehab every single day. And I think every school should do that regardless, because a little injury can turn into a big injury in no time. So always with the rehab, practicing lifting weights right before practicing maybe was the toughest thing ever, because you had to lift with your pants on and your cleats. So you got ready to go right to the field right after. That film was 2 hours, probably 1:30 to 2:30, 3 o'clock. Then you have practice from, they always say an hour and a half practice, but when you play for a bigger school, those practice go to about 2 to 3.5 hours. Before you know it, the sun up, the stars out, you thought it was mid-afternoon already.
So you're spending 12, 13 hours a day on athletics.
Athletics. And after that, you have automatic study hall. You have to go to study hall. In between those hours, you still have to eat. And that's right after practice. Now, when I play ball, we close the eating table at 8:30. Now, between 6 to 8, you have to go up there and get food. Depending on if you have a 10-page paper to do, depending on if you have 2 to 3 tests to do. If you don't go up there at 8:30, you're not going to eat. Yeah. And just to piggyback off what we just spoke about with with players getting money, I feel like all athletes should. And it should also come with the same thing, the GPA. If you don't get your GPA, you shouldn't get paid. Just like the way you don't get to play if you don't reach your GPA. But I've seen a lot of student athletes that came from families with 7 to 8 siblings. You know what they did with their money every month? They sent it home.
Yeah.
You know, to Coach Walker's Coach Walker's point there. And by the way, Coach, you know, my brother and I are Southern University grads, so we won't hold that Grambling against you. But to his point, you know, the NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Yeah. So they could allocate money to the Division II, Division III schools to pay these students. I mean, it doesn't have to all be generated by the schools. Why do we pay? You know, you look at the University of Michigan coaching staff, that's probably $30 million right there to the coaches. And that's too much money for a college football coach. And the kids aren't getting, you know, except for the little stipend. So the NCAA, it could, when you take fees from the big schools, obviously you would take more from the Power 5 schools. You allocate that money out to division, you know, lower Division 1s, Division 2s, Division 3, so that they can give those students some. It can be done because, you know, greed. They had no interest in doing it. It could be done.
I'll tell you another thing that you really have to consider here is that, you know, and I say this for the small schools and people who talk about Division II schools that are doing really well and they have some resources and they should go Division I. And this is a perspective that I think we should really think about. But where your football team goes and how they travel is where your tennis team has to travel, all right? And it's how your golf team has to travel. And so when we start talking about athletes getting paid, we're also talking about all the way across the board where if you have 21 sports, all 21 of your sports and the individuals on that team are getting paid, all right? And so there are a number of athletes. Of course, we know this. I'm not saying anything, but the perspective is that we don't think about the tennis team. We don't think about the soccer team. We don't think about the lacrosse team. Our concerted effort is on football and basketball and what we see on TV. And so, you know, the balance that I spoke about a second ago was about, you know, what's good for the gander is good for the goose. You pay football players, you got to play the tennis players. All right. You got to play the softball. You got to play the softball players. You got to figure out how to make this a equal circumstance for all athletes. And that's the toughest part. And I think that's a part that particularly as we look at gender equity, particularly
Title IX.
Yeah. You really have to pay close attention to how that and what that looks like in a model of paying athletes to be employees of the university, because it's going to be a trickle down all the way down pipe.
I agree with that, and I think it could work. You know, if I'm not mistaken, the NCAA is supposed to be a non-profit organization. What are you spending $3, $4, $5 billion on if you're a nonprofit organization? So you could allocate that money to the Division II, Division IIIs, and all the students could get a little piece of that, and you keep that cycle going every year, as opposed to seeing systems making two and a half, three. You know, I think they just missed the boat. it would take you gotta, you gotta start over. You gotta do a sheet of paper on it. It could certainly be done if they want it.
That's why I think I agree with Coach Keaton. That's why I think in the coming years you're going to see a new association with the Power Five school. I think it's inevitable. I think it's going to happen. I've heard Dabo Swinney talk about it. I've heard Nick Saban talk about it. I've heard all of the Power Five coaches talk about it because they know it's an inequity of them making all. Now they ain't gonna give them that money back, but they know that they're making all of this money, $8, $9, $10 million a year, and the players are not getting any of it. So I think the pandemic is going to generate more talk down that road. It's going to kick that can down the road even sooner than later because to me, that's inevitable. This whole equity thing, and when you look at athletic departments making up 60% of the revenue that comes in to these colleges around the country, it's inevitable, in my opinion.
You're right, Lee, because I say it all the time. 30,000 people or 90,000 people are not coming to see the math tournament. How the buildings are going to build on the campus, how a lot of the things are going to get done. That's the truth. And what Coach Walker said, and to piggyback off, I agree with Vincent. There's some things that could be done from a standpoint there, but it's not going to be done. And as Coach Walker said, the Title IX thing is the one that makes this where it becomes difficult. Girls' sports are not what you do for male sports. You have to do in return for female sports. So when you talk about the exposure that female sports don't really get, they really don't rejuvenate any money. Now, if the colleges had to pay that, most of them couldn't afford to pay that, especially at the colleges I've worked at. They can't afford that. The travel, you was talking about making them employees of the college. I mean, I'm barely an employee right now. So what are you going to do? Pay them janitor salaries? I mean, I'm just being real about it. You can't even get full staff at some of the HBCUs that you work at, but there's people who have criticism about, like we coach at the Power Five, and we got a staff of 36 people there, and they'll sit in the stands and criticize you to the fullest when you coaching the running backs, the tight ends, you the laundry guy, you cleaning the floor, you're the academic advisor, the whole nine. So if somebody like Mr. Vincent came along and sat down with somebody who really wanted to see it really work as a model, it possibly could work, but it wasn't set up that way. Just like when we talk about systematic racism, it wasn't never designed. The system ain't failed. It's working just like it was designed to work.
Absolutely.
And that's why, Lee, my last comment, that's why we don't have it today, because we missed that boat. I go back to my point. If we had true leadership who really cared about this topic, there's no doubt that good brains, good minds could sit down and come up with a model that would make this right for everybody. And again, I don't care if you play at a Power Five. I don't care if you're the greatest superstar. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't take you trying to come up with a model that pays the superstars $1 million and pay everybody else $1,000. Right. Again, look, my son's 4-year education at Furman was $260,000. I didn't pay 1 penny. And then with the cost of attendance difference, they still dumped a little money into his account every month. I thought we had died and gone to heaven. It doesn't require a lot, but we have people that don't want to do anything, and that's why we still have this problem.
That's a good point.
People got together and said, we're going to do something and make it right across the board. Every sport, male, female, boom, they could get it.
So guys, let's make a small shift here. And I particularly want my HBCU coaches to maybe kind of start this off, and Walt, I want you to chime in, but everybody, considering some of the things that happened in Charlottesville, because I know that's where you are at UVA, George Floyd. I mean, we all talk about George Floyd and, his tragic death, murder, I should say. And some of these leagues have implemented the NBA, implemented a lot of social justice issues. Racial inequality has become the forefront of what some of these leagues are doing. How do you guys handle it being at HBCUs? Because I know, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of things that go on there. Walt, with you being at the center point of some tragic things that happened in Charlottesville, how are you guys handling that? Also, do we think this is a fad? Do we think this is just the moment and we're going to talk about it for a moment and it fades? Or do we think that this becomes a part of sports fabric moving forward? Coach Keaton, start us.
Well, that's a difficult question because I think it's bigger than George. I think it's bigger than George. What happened to George has just been broadcast. We go all the way back to Rodney King. So if you want to ask that, in 1992, that's when it happened. And you ask yourself, was it a fad? Yes, it's just like the headline. It lasts, but every day there's going to be something new in the headline. The only way it's going to last is we got to unite with each other. They got to make a stand for something that they want to do, and they got to be powerful about it. A lot of coaches are afraid. I get in trouble all the time. I'm a part of the AFCA and the whole nine, and I'm probably the most vocal coach that you ever want to meet. And I speak my piece. And a lot of times coaches are afraid to say anything because they're afraid that they're not going to get the opportunity that Walter Pitts got. I'm looking for the opportunity to coach with this coach or this guy, and I'm afraid to say what's against or whatever. The way I feel, if you were going to hire me, you was going to hire me off my skill set. But we all know that's not true. If you're not in that circle or you don't run with the same people, as Mr. Vincent said, that there's a difference that me and Coach Walker coach the same kids. We work the hardest as everybody else in the building, but the other guy make $5 million. I may not make but 45, but I still work just as hard as he do, but I'm not going to get that same pay. And the way they keep that circle the way it is that they got their friends, the people that they hang with in their circles, in their communities, and those are the people that get those opportunities. The other people that don't, you might be lucky enough that you do. I say about education, it's probably the worst investment in the world. Where else in the world would you invest $100,000 at and not guarantee on a return on your money? Most kids who go and play athletics, they get a job that's possibly a general education that they can't even find. It's so important to watch the structure of athletes. When you go back and you pull records and see what they graduate in, it's almost embarrassing, especially when you look at the records of Division I kids. And let's talk about the kids that go to HBCUs, because me and Coach Walker are preaching a whole nother song because we ain't guaranteed that none of our kids going to get drafted. We're not guaranteed that none of our kids going to get an opportunity to play at the next level. So we're preaching something totally different than other people are preaching. The other places, they just want them to go to school, stay healthy. That's why Lee said it's mandatory that you have the training room, and you got to go get tried because they want their athlete to be as healthy as this that he needs to be. It's like the Greek gods. Everybody with money pile into the stadium to watch their Ultimate Warriors play, and that's what they're missing right now. My Ultimate Warriors are not getting a chance to play, and we're not getting any benefits from it. Our kids are not getting any benefits from it. And people can get mad for what they say, but it is what it is. It's the truth. That what happened with the guy that just happened a couple of days ago. The guy walked around with a shotgun on his neck. He killed 2 people. The police walked up and gave him water.
Yep.
Now you tell me what's wrong with that picture. You can't tell me that it's not a different line for me and for them. I can't go and nobody. I probably got one of the best college coaching records as a young guy. I've won more games than most people have coached. But guess what? I still not got the opportunity to coach running backs nowhere. And when they do give us a job, they're not going to give a guy like me a job because I'm going to talk back. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to question. Most of the people that give jobs to, they're yes people. They're going to do exactly what they're told to do. They're not going to buck the system. I'm Kunta Kinte. They're not going to be able to control me. They have to cut my foot off because I'm going to be running. And I'm going to be in the locker room talking to the guys about, look, man, this stuff going to hurt y'all. Let me go get Dr. David on the phone because that's my guy. And David told me this stuff going to scar you up. You need to think about what you need to be doing. These are the things that we talk about. We're real with our kids. We going to lie. When Lee said something about the possibilities of certain things, were you lied to when you were recruited?
Hell yeah.
Like the flag when you went to Ole Miss and you played and you saw that rebel flag playing, you didn't even think about that. The only thing you was thinking about was hooping that night. But at the end of the day, you ask the question whether an 18 and 22-year-old guy can make that decision. Hell no, he can't make that decision because all he wants to do is play. But if you were told the truth, and the reason why the doctor don't talk to Coach Pitt, he ain't talking to nobody. The doctors at our schools are talking to me. They're going to come to me and they're going to tell me, and I have to have some type of ounces in my soul to be able to say, this is not right. we're not going to do it. And Lee, know I stood on this from the standpoint from the day. We should not play. The Black Lives Matter, yes, it sounds good. I think the biggest thing that happened today is when the basketball team said that they were not going to play. That's how you use your platform. You want to stop racism? Stop their money. Stop the power, cut it off from a line, and then we'll have something to go on.
Coach Key, I'm with you 100%.
Coach Walker?
100%.
That's right.
100%.
Well,
Absolutely.
before you go, Coach Walker, and this is what we talked about in some previous shows, and this is why I was so adamant about the NBA not playing, because what you've seen since the NBA started back up was, number one, they really didn't get a platform. You know, they put a Black Lives Matter on the court. They told them what they couldn't put on their jersey. They told them exactly how they really could protest to do a little bit, but not enough. So what you've seen now is just a watered down version. I mean, how many have we talked about anything since that first day where the NBA guys got on their knees and kneel? Have we talked about any of that since that first day when the bubble restarted? No.
Nope.
Nobody said a word. In the post-game interviews, have you heard anything being said about any social justice measures, anything? No. We've not heard anything. The first person that said something was Chris Paul the other day. And I'm in complete agreement with Coach Keaton. If you want to hurt it and you want to change the system, they got to stop playing. That's why I told you, Lee, in the beginning that they shouldn't play. That's the only way that you're going to make an effect and start to change the way that this goes. If you start affecting that bottom line in their pockets, that's a different story. That's why I was never on board with the NBA coming back, because I knew this is what we would get. Everybody's forgotten about why they started to play.
Bob, I love your passion on that, and I agree with you. What I'll say to you, though, is this. Today's efforts, and I love that they did it, is a beautiful show of symbolism on the NBA's part. Two things I want to see from the NBA players. Are you willing to set out the rest of the whole playoffs? Because that's the key. Not a one-time symbolistic thing. Because now, and then after that, if you're willing to do that, Marv, are you willing now, after you get out of the bubble, to organize Black people, pay for the buses, pay for the hotels, and boycott these major companies to get change? You don't get change by just doing a one-time boycott of one game. Are you going to do it the rest of? Are you willing to set out the rest of the playoffs? And then what do you do after you leave the bubble? Because I've seen a lot. LeBron, I love it. I love LeBron. He does great work. But I don't see a lot of the other basketball players out in the forefront. So that's what I want to see. I thought personally playing was great because I have heard them talk about social justice during the games. I have heard more people talk about it, but it is even bigger than that. It's what you do afterwards, because look, everybody in that bubble is making $30 million. I'm not making $30 million, and the people out here on Broad Street is not making $30 million. So what are the athletes going to do post this one-time bubble is what I want to see.
Okay, Lee Jones.
Can I chime in on that?
Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Sean.
I know you guys are talking about the NBA, and somebody said that they really need to get serious, and to some degree, I agree with that. However, on the women's side, it's out there. Their community, they're doing things, outside of the bubble. They're promoting it, every game. If you go to Instagram, you see all of those things on the back of their uniforms. So I think it's they're creating or painting a bigger picture on the women's side. Also, there has been athletes that aren't playing this season.
Yes,
just to go and fight social injustice. I know personally about 4 or 5.
Well, Lee, I got a question for you. When you talk about that, the worst thing that they do to athletes, and they do this to these kids, that most of your best athletes come from the poverty situation. You turn around and you give him $30 million. He has no financial training. He don't know how to invest. He don't know nothing. He ain't never had nothing. All he knows is money, clothes, and women. I don't want to use the other word. That's what he looks at. That's why the other one. That's why they want to be. They want to be hood rich. That's what they want to be. So if they've never been trained financially, they're going to keep the money spinning. the money's going to go right back into the system, and they know that. I said somebody the other day, I said, we were already set back 400 years. But if you look at the SEC, you've been set back another 300 years because that's all that is a modern day indentured service that I'm getting money off the backs of athletes, and most of them are 80% Black athletes that they're not willing to pay, nor are they willing to educate them on finances. I think that's the most important thing. We out here playing checkers, they playing Monopoly. Those guys don't know how to buy real estate. They don't know what they do. They don't know how to, they don't know that. So when you ask, can they do this? They doing what they think they know what's best by taking off my jersey, not playing in one game. But it's like we said earlier in a few shows back, how can a guy who gets 30 million, but he didn't spend 33 of that 30 million. Before the season started, he already $3,000 in the hole, so he can't miss no games because he depending on that check.
Right.
There's people who was able to opt out of stuff because they had been taught by somebody that they wouldn't have been mentored by. Like, I want to be mentored by Mr. Vincent and his brother. I want to be mentored by somebody that can give me some knowledge on what to do next when I get some money and not get on Amazon and order 15 shirts that I don't need.
Well, Teddy, I agree with you. That's probably, and I'm going to say this about my buddies here, that's what we spend our adult lives trying to do. Mentor young people and catch them. And you guys have heard me say this from drunk. The brainwashing of our young people starts in middle school. It starts in middle school and it leaks through high school into college. Everybody on this call has to take their expertise and give it back to the young people and their parents. Because, look, LT, I was with you when Bobby Petrino came into your living room, when Ed Ogeron came in your living room. I wasn't laughing and smiling at the gum chewing that they were doing. I didn't care about that. I wanted to know what they were going to do for you, how was your education going to work. We have to educate our young people and their families on this system that's called college athletics and pro athletics. I agree with you, Coach, but I still say a one-time boycott is not going to do anything. All it's going to do is going to make beautiful headlines. It's going to be great, but if they're not willing to go the full course with this, then it's going. And if LA and Portland play Friday night, it's a mutiny.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like Marvin. I shut it down then. I would shut it down. You know, Doc Rivers gave such an impassioned speech in that post game last night, and it just reverberated through everybody. I'd shut it down. I'd show everybody how serious this issue is. Like
if they're not willing to do that, EJ, then it's a moot point. It's just a show of symbolism at this point.
But Lee, that's exactly what I was saying. That's why the season never should have started. You know, the symbolism of playing basketball. Somebody important has to take a stance and lose something. Somebody got to lose something for the betterment of us as a people.
And it can't be Kaepernick by himself.
And it can't be Kaepernick. They got to lose.
He was by himself. We need a team of people to risk it all to change it.
Big time athlete. Let me say this, okay? And I hear what you say on that, but okay, after the bubble, what are they going to do? Okay, you say they shouldn't play basketball. Then what is the plan? Okay, I have to strategize every day in my job to make sure that this college is running. What is the plan? See, this notion that we don't play basketball and we do nothing, then what are you going to do? Because I haven't seen anybody do anything really to affect change prior to George Floyd. You said it, Teddy. Hell, people have been getting beat down and shot up until now. So what is the plan? Who's organizing? Look, right or wrong, we look at our athletes as these people that make social change. They're really not, but we look towards them for that. Some of them are eloquent and articulate enough to do it, but most of them, you're right, Teddy, they're not. But who's going to take the lead to educate these people and do more? So if they didn't play, then what?
Well, that would have been the start. That would have been the start to the plan.
They're going to say, we didn't play. Boom, that's the statement. Then what?
Well, I think you're not giving some of these NBA players enough credit.
I think a lot of them have plans. I think the athlete today is so different than the athlete 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Tell me what plans you've heard.
Well, just because
I mean,
we don't
you
know
don't you don't know
doesn't
them
mean that there is
personally,
not
but
one.
to say that a man or a woman doesn't have a plan for their life after sports is a tall order.
Nobody said that, Raquel. We're talking about how they affect social justice and social change. And what you're telling me is that they shouldn't have played the basketball season. Their job to make a change. Okay, if they don't, then what? That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Then what?
I don't think Kaepernick had all the answers when he decided to take that knee and continue to take the knee. I think he figured it out as he went. It's too hard to say what you're gonna do 6 months from now,
time to do it.
because a lot of it is raw emotion. A lot of it is, this is an injustice. We got to do something, and that's really where it starts. So to have a 6-month plan or a year plan, it's hard.
Lee, you don't think that if the NBA shut down and LeBron or James Harden or one of them said, man, bump this season. Yeah. We not playing no season. Too many of us getting hit. Do you think that message wouldn't reverberate throughout the Black community and wouldn't bring people together to say LeBron was willing to lose an NBA season or the restart or James Harden or whoever? You don't think that wouldn't reverberate and get people motivated to say if they willing to lose something for the betterment of our people and to bring us up, because all this crazy stuff that we seeing, you don't think that wouldn't cause something monumental?
What would it cause, Marv? That's what I'm saying.
The same thing that happened when George was killed. That's what would happen essentially.
He can afford to do that. He has $200 million. He's worth $800 million.
Okay, Lee, but Lee, you doing it, okay, and LeBron doing it. Yeah, we know LeBron ain't losing nothing if he doesn't play, but it's still symbolic. And it's still saying to us that I'm with you as a people.
I love symbolism. I just need more strategy on the end. I'll let everybody else chime in. I love symbolism.
I would think that if they shut it down, I would hope that some of the key guys like the LeBrons and these guys would say, look, we're going to come together and formulate a next step, a game plan, because it's the right thing to do. Forget about going on TV every night so everybody can watch us and feel good about life when we know what's happening out in the streets is the direct opposite. So I would hope that LeBron and these guys, the NBA Player Association president and all these guys would come together and say, what do we need to do right now, this moment? It can't be, let's get back on that court tomorrow night, given everything that's going on.
Coach Walker?
I want to chime in, and I have there's a couple things that I think about as we talk about this story, and it's great fruitful conversation. But I always ask the question, because I eat, sleep, drink basketball. This is kind of what I do. But we're living in a pandemic era. So the A clause here is we're talking about whether they should have gone back to playing in this bubble, right? So the first question that I would have would be, and still is, if there was no pandemic and there was no pausing of play, would players have said, we're not going to play, or we're going to stop the season now and not play if the season had never been disconnected, all right? And so I do believe that we have to take a great look at, like, I don't think they were supposed to meet tonight at 8 o'clock. So I got on this Zoom tonight last minute so I could kind of watch what was going on, and they're meeting right now. And we should expect them to say that they're not going to, there's no reason for them to meet tonight if they're not going to say we're leaving the bubble, all right? And so I'm 100%, my answers and conversation with my friends before I got on is that you're leaving the bubble because we do need to recognize that all those guys don't make $30 million. Right. All right. My son has a high school teammate, Jalen Horde, who's with the Portland Trailblazers. And I know him, but you guys probably don't. And he doesn't play he plays with Dame Lillard, and he plays with Carmelo and those guys. He don't make $30 million, and he's a rookie. All right. And so this does affect the bottom lines of a lot of other people where these guys are just starting. Now they still make more money than the average person makes, right. But they need to leave that room tonight and say they're leaving that bubble, and then they do need right now, it can't be 6 months later, all right? Because you're walking off of work. It needs to be tonight that you're saying, we're leaving here and we're going to Milwaukee and LA and New York and wherever the case may be, and this is what we're gonna do. Otherwise, it's still just I don't want to say a tokenistic approach to dealing with it, but still you're leaving not playing ball. And we need to make sure that we do understand that we need to make sure we understand that for them, playing ball is not entertainment. It's a job, it's employment. They don't do anything else. All right. And so like none of us are gonna like I can't afford to call Elizabeth City State and say, hey, you know what? I'm not coming to work. I'm not gonna do it anymore because you know I gotta spend this time. I gotta figure out how to do what I'm planning to do to make a difference in the midst of my employment. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we throw out playing ball like playing ball is not their job. All right, playing ball is what they do to take care of their families, whether they have a lot of money or not. And there's some guys that are in that bubble because other guys said they weren't going to play, like J.R. Smith's with the Lakers because dudes said they weren't coming to play. So I mean, we really got to take a great look at the fact that you know this is not just like going to hoop. This is like a job. You know, this is a job, and I'm all for them. I'm all for them leaving the bubble. They're going to leave the bubble, but they can't leave the bubble and say, "All right, we left the bubble." I agree with you. We can't leave the bubble and not go and in a unified manner, go and make something happen that's going to aid and abet this cause.
Yeah, that's all.
Can I chime on this? Being an athlete of the sport, or being an African American, I feel like those are the things right now that I feel like I would tell the athletes that are in those roles right now. Some athletes have enough money. Some people have been playing the sport for many years. But right now, as a race, we are being killed. We have police brutality. We have dealt with so much stuff that the only thing that should be next is the boycott. If we boycotted every single sports, I bet 100% a lot of things would change because that's a lot of money coming out of their pockets. Those are people that's in the stands, the people that buy the jerseys. They do it because you're playing that sport. Their team is getting that money because you're playing that sport. If you boycott, it stops so many things. It shows me, myself, that used to be an athlete, that you care more about us than that contract that you're looking for or that next playoff game. Show me that you care about, you know, my son, my daughter. We're both African Americans. They have to deal with that also. So I feel like they shouldn't play. And that goes across, you know, every sport. If you boycott, that shows more to the whole world than it does just sitting out one game or putting Black Lives Matter on the back of a jersey. Right. You know, I can go out there and put Black Lives Matters on the back of a jersey, but not take it serious. You feel me? I feel like if you really want to take it serious and show us, show the world, show, you know, the Black community, show the kids that have to deal with this on a regular basis. I'm from a small town. We see how police move every single day, and it's scary. It's dangerous. I'm 6'4", 300 pounds, and I'm still scared regardless if it's a traffic stop, if they're asking a question, if they see me at the gas station. It doesn't matter because regardless, if I put enough fear into them, I can be the next victim. And I feel like they need to show boycott is everything. One game is not enough. Boycott everything and show that you're serious.
Hey, Marv, I want to get into the topic of name, image, and likeness, though. Can you read that one off? And let's discuss it before we got about 10 more minutes. But I certainly want to hit that because I wanted to see if we can get the coach's opinion on that, what the Senate has done with the possible congressional Bill of Rights for the athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it, but the U.S. Senators announced a proposal for college athletes Bill of Rights for some of the college coaches here, you know, athletic compensation, name, image and likeness. Athletes could enter into a group of licensing deals and into revenue sharing deals. It would also ban restrictions and penalties attached to athletes' school and allow them to transfer without any penalty. Lifetime scholarships, which I think is a great idea. Evidence-based and on long-term health care. What are your thoughts about some of these proposed items in the Athletic Bill of Rights, along with the name, image, and likeness? Some of the coaches want to just chime in on that?
Coach Pitts?
Speak back on what I just said a minute ago, though. Like, I think selling their uniform inside of the bookstore, getting paid, I just, again, like Coach said too, it got to be across the board.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go across the board with this thing, then it's not going to happen. And I think when you go across the board, you have to make every athlete, even at the Power 5, which is going to be difficult, but it has to be like, this is what's going to be a set. I know your name is bigger than Lisa, but you still get the same, that you always paid the same. And I think as the year goes, the money should go up. You know what I'm saying? But I think if you're going to say, I'm going to give you $1,500 for swimming, every player on the swimming team, soccer team, football team, no matter what your name, your status is on that campus, this is what you're going to get across the board to all the student athletes. I think that's the start. And then each year, like anything, and you know how it is when I left, you guys got to maybe go to Puerto Rico, get travel, go different places. You know what I'm saying? It happens, the money increase. But I think across the board for every student athlete, they got to find a way. And the NCAA, I don't know if the D2 or NEIA or D3 is fall under the NCAA, the umbrella, the system, but I think they got to find a way that across the board that they pay everyone the same and they make enough money where they can do it. And when they do that and have those conversations, you got to let those athletes know, you got to let the priors or the top echelon athletes that, this is what it's going to be across the board. But then we also have another way with your uniform sale in the bookstore that you can get compensated off of that. Just that across the board money, it has to be the same though. I think from every sport in this.
Hey, Coach, what if they ban the restrictions on the transfer rule? That's one of the things that Congress put in the Bill of Rights, the proposal. What if they ban the rule saying that you can transfer anytime, in essence, making free agency for college athletes?
That's going into effect next year.
Yeah.
They put it in effect next year where that
you can transfer one time, and then they said, but they're proposing anytime you can transfer. How do you think that will affect college athletes and your sport?
Oh man, it'll be a mess because what'll happen is you're gonna run into Coach Keaton is gonna run into this issue. Like if he got a receiver or someone that putting up tremendous numbers, where he is, and this whole it's a business. And everybody from AAU coaches to 7-on-7 coaches, everybody like to look good. And if I got a receiver over here and got 1,500 yards in 1 year that can really play football, no matter who we go up against, he just had a different path that he chose to go a different direction. Then you're going to have them Power 5 come in right behind him and say, hey, look, you can come over here and play for us. And what kid going to turn that down?
Yeah.
Because it's totally different what he getting over here. It's going to be an issue. And I think it's a tough issue to play with because if you do that, you're going to hurt some of the smaller schools because if kids go play and when FBSU, they play Power 5 schools or whatever, and the kid have a good game against that, that's it. He looking forward to that game.
Right. And
that kid showing that he can play on that level, and you talking about the summer turning around that somebody tampering, it's going to happen.
I think so. I agree with Walt on that, but I think it's going to be more so it'll hurt basketball a lot more than it'll hurt football.
Correct.
I think in football, we get just about who we're going to get. Now, every now and then we get a needle in a haystack that may show up that somebody missed from one of those little small country towns, and he's 6'5", and he's 300 pounds, and he can flat out play. And I think that does become, you'll never get to keep him but one semester
That's
because I don't have the bag to be able to keep him. But basketball, it's kind of like, basketball, especially at the HBCU level, and I'll give Coach Walker a shot at this too, because they're known for that. I mean, they'll have kids in the CIAA that are really tremendous good basketball players. So now you're talking about if somebody can watch them at Clemson or North Carolina or somebody else go watch them play, now he'll be fighting for his job or fighting to keep a roster together for every year because they're going to be free agent tickets.
Yeah, especially like in the SWAC, the MEAC, and those schools right now, because you can understand, I coached in the SWAC. Half of my career, I've been in HBCU. And I had to deal with it. I was in charge of getting the schedule together. And we play 12 to 14 non-guaranteed games. And you're talking about an athlete that go to Michigan State, get them 20. Turn around, go to USC, get them 18. And them 14 games that he's been consistent, you mean tell me that them Power Five are going to come back and try to grab him the next summer? They're going to do it because he's shown that he can play on that level. He just had a different path why he's where he at right now. He probably just didn't get highly recruited out of high school, but then guess what? He showed he had the work ethic that he can get to that next level. He can play on that next level. So when he get the opportunity to play against those Power Fives, he's going to try to give them buckets.
Yeah.
Coach Walker. Next part too is the next piece of that puzzle. You guys think about this. You're going to have coaches that are going to be getting rid of kids.
Yep.
That they bring in for no reason to go and get one of the kids that is in. You've got people talk all the time about this Division I transfer list for basketball and how these numbers are growing. And from a coach's standpoint, there's a lot, and I've been on a bunch of these rooms where coaches get out there and they talk about kids meet their level of adversity the first time, they hop up and transfer and so forth and so on. And man, I'm gonna tell you right now, and I'm telling you from experience, from a very close situation, all right. And these coaches are recruiting off of the transfer list. And so when you recruit off of the transfer list, you have to put one or two people on the transfer list to do that. And so the dangerous part of it is, we're looking at it one-sided in terms of kids will hop up and coaches will end up recruiting kids right off of the team, but they'll also be getting rid of good kids off of their team that have that either want to stay or want to be coached or haven't done anything wrong, or they just the odd man out, or they're not from the same region, or whatever the case may be, and totally get just screwed over, so to speak, because of that. And then that kid has to move on and fight for their character. Yeah. They have to go on and fight for why they're leaving when they basically been pushed out of the door because they want to take somebody off the transfer list that's gone somewhere and gotten in trouble. So I think it's dangerous. A lot of these rules are made by the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. All right, the students make these decisions, and the NCAA goes forth with it. Then obviously the administrators have to come back and manage it. But on one side, yes, what we're talking about is legit, and on the other side, there's coaches that are already abusing this transfer deal. One time, there's an exception that you have a waiver that you have now called the runoff rule. So if a coach runs you off, you don't have to transfer. You don't have to sit out anyway. And all of these guys are getting run off and getting that waiver, and coaches are literally running dudes off to take a dude off transfer list. So I don't know how I feel about that. I got my own personal views about that, but we got to be very careful about just how we integrity-wise operate as coaches in that bubble, because at the end of the day, not only are people going to be stealing people from your team, but you're going to have to get a kid. Sometimes you're going to have to move a kid out, and it's really unethical.
And let's talk about the third piece of that. The third piece of that is the high school kid. The high school kid is really going to miss out on being recruited now, because we all are recruiting on the transfer line now. So the high school kids and his parents every year that's going to be looking, well, like I said, we stay in the portal 24/7. If you ask, it's going to be checked in a meeting at least 3 times to see if I can find a guy to upgrade my team. Okay, well, I get on my coaches. Hey, what about the high school kid? We got to find somebody to help build the foundation of this program. We just can't make a living off transfer.
Right. And another thing is
last point, Walt. Last point.
Okay. AAU coaches is another thing. That's a whole other thing too. Like, you got to tie them in with it too, because these kids, you know, they have a relationship with these kids, and they be like, hey, so and so, you know, I think, you know, you played well. I think you can play on this level. Like you're there. You know, enjoy your 4 years there. You know, if whatever meant for you, it meant for you. And right now, it's like probably 300-400 kids that had a free education that decided to transfer. They're stuck, don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it at that, guys. Look, we could probably talk about this stuff all night. Yeah, we up against the time. We got to do it.
This is great.
But, you know, Coach Walker, LT, John, Elliot, Vincent, Coach Keaton.
Vince, you know I love it.
Look,
It was awesome.
I really appreciate you guys coming on and giving us some time.
Hey, we appreciate everybody, man. Y'all were great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
We'll definitely have to do this again and touch some different subjects. But thank you guys again for coming on After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. We ran up against time, so we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Raquel.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.